Welcome, listeners, to tonight's story, titled The Harvest of Crows. Tonight's story doesn't begin with a scream. It begins with silence, with the hush of a village that has seen too much, and the boy who dared to stay awake when the crows returned. This is a tale of scarecrows that learn to listen, of names that rot in the earth, of a harvest that comes not for grain, but for memory. We are headed to a place not marked on any map, a place that locals call the Hollow. They don't write stories there, they bury them. Because some truths grow teeth when told aloud, and some children don't stay children long. This isn't the kind of horror that knocks, it waits. So draw the curtains, keep your name to yourself, and whatever you do, don't follow the crows, and sleep lightly. The harvest is listening, and in the hollow the wheat grows tall and the children grow quiet. The harvest always begins the same way, with the landing of the first crow. Stay safe and inside. The first crow lands. In the hollow, the wheat grows tall, and the sky never clears by harvest. Rain comes sideways, wind walks on two legs, and the crows come when the fields begin to thirst. They do not come early, they do not come late. The oldest say they arrive when the land remembers its hunger. This year, the wheat stood high. Too high. Twice a man's height, and wrong in colour. Not gold, not green, but a shade you only see once a year. The colour of old bone and old blood. The children stopped playing when the wheat turned. The dogs howled at dusk. The windows were shuttered, but never locked. Because locks imply resistance, and the hollow had long since learned. You do not resist the harvest. In a home nearest the field, the one with the sagging porch and the red cloth nailed to the door, a boy named Isaac did not sleep. He was 12 that year, just old enough to know the rules, too old to forget them. The others told him, sleep through the harvest night. Don't look at the scarecrow. Don't listen if the crows speak. But Isaac was a listening kind of boy, a watching kind of boy, the kind who didn't blink when he should, and saw things most didn't want to. His grandmother, Elsbeth, who had no eyes but knew every shadow, said to him that night, "The first crow hasn't landed yet. You'll feel it when it does. You'll feel it in your teeth." That evening the lanterns were lit, the porches swept clean, and the town fell quiet. Not out of peace, but habit. They had done this every year, after all. Every year the crows came. Every year one child vanished, and the hollow survived. Just after midnight, a wind moved through the corn like a sigh. The scarecrow, oldest thing in the hollow, turned its head. And somewhere above, without a sound, the first crow landed. It was not large, it did not cry, but the wheat bent around it like worship. Isaac sat up in bed, suddenly awake, and Elsbeth, sitting in her rocking chair with no fire lit, said from the darkness, "There, you feel it now, don't you, child? That's the sound of the choosing." Isaac did not answer. He rose, went to the window, looked out across the field where no light dared go, and in the pit he saw them. Eyes, dozens, black, blinking, waiting. The crows had come, and this time they were looking at him. Part 2. The stories they never write down. The hollow did not wake. It never did. Not on the second night of harvest. The town simply held its breath as it always had. Wooden houses sagging beneath their own secrets, crooked chimneys exhaling cold, window panes thin as eyelids, and behind each curtain the old families sat with their lamps dimmed and their memories shut tighter than their doors. The stories were never written down. Not the real ones. Not the ones about the scarecrow that moved when no one watched, or the crows that flew in formation, as if led by thought and not instinct. Not the stories of the child who vanished with both shoes by the door, or the one who came back in spring without a mouth. The hollow had no library, no records, no names carved in stone. It had only tradition, and a tradition that had teeth. Isaac sat in the attic that second night, in the crook of the roof where rain crept through the wood and onto the back of his neck. He didn't mind the cold. The cold didn't lie. It crept, it warned, it settled first in the bones of things that were about to go missing. From his high perch, he could see the field, though it was more shape than place now. A black sea of stalks and silence, lined with the bent shadows of things that should not move on their own. The scarecrow was still in the same place, always the same crooked post, the same burlap face too soft around the mouth. But now the wheat bowed to it. Not from wind, from reverence. And there were crows, yes, dozens now, but not watching the field. They were watching the village. One sat on a weather vane, another on the church steeple. A dozen more lined the schoolhouse roof, where no lessons had been taught since the last boy vanished. They perched like judges, not birds, not beasts, just waiting, black and breathless, for the hollow to flinch. The attic groaned with Isaac's weight as he moved toward the narrow window. The dust here was thick, not just from time, but from neglect. No one came up here anymore, not since Elsbeth had nailed shut the trapdoor 5 winters ago. He had opened it again, and something had whispered as he did. Not words, not voice, just breath. Old air that had not been stirred since the last time a child refused to sleep. Behind him, there was a trunk, old, split, bound in leather that looked like skin. He had not noticed it before. Not because it was hidden, but because it had not wanted to be noticed. Inside, beneath a layer of feathers and ash, were scraps of parchment, stiff, fragile. The writing on them was done in soot or blood or something too dark to name. No titles, just entries, dates and names. Dozens of names, each followed by a single word. Taken. The parchment smelled of rot and wheat and smoke. He read them all, even the ones where the ink had bled through, even the one that ended mid-stroke, with the ink trailing down the page like something had jerked the hand away. The last name was familiar. He knew it, had heard it once, whispered by Elsbeth when she thought him sleeping. It was a name that matched the one carved into the cellar wall beneath the floorboards. It was his mother's. That night, the crows grew louder, not in voice, they never spoke, but in presence. Every street light flickered. Every dog whimpered and burrowed deeper. The corn swayed in patterns, in ruins, and the scarecrow leaned. Not forward, not back, but toward the attic, toward him. In the hollow, the adults never said what they knew, but they all left out one plate at supper and one set of shoes on the porch, and they never let their children sleep near windows on the second night, because the second night wasn't about waiting. It was about being seen, and Isaac, small, silent Isaac, had already been seen. Part 3. The Field That Watches Back. In the hollow, the wheat did not grow. It remembered. Each stalk stood tall, not because of sun or rain, but because of memory, of bones buried beneath, of names whispered into furrows, of promises made under a harvest moon. And now the field was listening. It did not rustle with wind. It moved when no wind came. It swayed in time with breath, not weather. From Isaac's attic window, the world had tilted, subtly but undeniably. Shapes no longer held, shadows stretched too far, and the scarecrow had grown heavier, as if weighted by something unseen. Each morning, the town pretended. They swept porches that never got dirty. They cooked bread they did not eat. They smiled with the kind of teeth that only show when you're hiding a scream in your stomach. But Isaac did not pretend. Not anymore. He had read the pages in the attic. He had counted the names. He had seen his mother's carved into the cellar wall beneath layers of claw marks and old rope. He had found the shoe, just one, small, buried in the earth beside the scarecrow's post, still tied. And he knew now. The scarecrow was not a warning. It was a witness. It watched the children. It waited for one to wander too close, one to look back, one to ask, why? The crows grew bolder by the third night. Not louder, never louder, just closer. One sat on the porch rail outside Isaac's window. Another pecked gently at the glass as though testing it for give. The scarecrow didn't move. Not visibly. But the feeling had changed. Where once it had stood still like a farmer's warning or a forgotten effigy, now it bent, imperceptibly, toward the town. Not from weight, not from gravity. From interest, from anticipation, from longing. Isaac stepped into the field at dusk. No one saw him leave, or if they did not stop him. The stalks parted as he moved, not broken, not disturbed, but welcoming, like hands withdrawing politely to let him pass. The smell was thick, rot, damp earth, feathers, something sour beneath it all. A sweetness that had gone too long untended. He walked the narrow path between the rows toward the scarecrow. It loomed larger now. Its post wasn't wood. It looked like it had once been wood, but was now more like something grown. Grainless, veined, as if it had been fed. The scarecrow's face was stitched, but the stitches twitched. Its mouth sagged slightly open, like it had something to say but had forgotten the words halfway through. At its base, feathers, not fallen, arranged, a ring of black. Inside the ring, a shape scratched into the dirt, a circle with 6 jagged marks inside it. Isaac did not recognize it. until he counted the names on the attic pages from the last 6 years, 1 mark per child. A new mark had been started. It was not finished. The wind stilled. A single crow landed on the scarecrow's head. It stared at Isaac, not like a bird, like a man who knew your first lie and waited for you to tell your second. Its eyes did not blink. Isaac took 1 step backward, and the wheat closed behind him. The Hollow never warned its children, because it did not have to. The rules were written in bones, etched in harvest knives and chimney soot, and the hush of adults who loved you just enough to pretend. And now the field had seen Isaac. It had opened, it had waited, and it had chosen. Part 4. Names the earth won't keep. In the Hollow, names do not last, not because they are forgotten, oh no. The Hollow remembers everything, but names are not meant to stay. They sink into soil, get caught in feathers, ride the backs of crows across the harvest moon. They peel away from the mouths that spoke them and settle in dark places where the wheat drinks deep. Names in the Hollow are traded, not kept, and this year, 1 name was already being whispered by the field. The attic. The attic was colder now, not draft cold, not winter cold, empty cold, like something had left, or something had arrived and waited for him to notice. Isaac returned from the field without speaking, without sleeping, without blinking for too long. The path he took through the wheat, the one that had opened for him, closed behind him. No trace, no bend, no crushed husk, but the crows had followed. Not above. Inside. They perched now in the corners of the house, invisible unless you looked from the corner of your eye. They moved only when your back was turned. Their claws never clicked, but you could feel the pressure of their weight. Their eyes never glowed, but the air around them warped, as if memory bent in their presence, and they watched Elsbeth. Old, blind Elsbeth, whose chair no longer rocked, whose hands now trembled even when still. She did not speak, but the corners of her mouth curled downward in a shape of knowing. That night, Isaac went down into the cellar. It had always been locked. Always. But the door was open now. Not swung wide, just enough. A sliver. A suggestion. The stairs creaked the way bones creak when disturbed. And the smell. Not rot, not mildew, not even dust. It smelled like burial. Fresh earth. And earth too long packed, grief too long buried, and a thread of sweetness, that same scent from the field, the sweetness of something once alive, now made into offering. The walls of the cellar were lined in soot, symbols drawn in ash, names carved into brick, dozens, and one freshly etched not by hand, by claw. A crow sat in the corner, silent. It had no eyes, but yet it still saw Isaac. Isaac approached the far wall, where a wooden beam jutted from the ground, wrapped in old roots. Something clung to the side of it, not quite bark, not quite bone. He brushed the dirt away and saw his name, not carved, grown. The wood pulsed faintly beneath it, like a second heart. Now Isaac did not scream. He did not cry. He simply understood. The field did not take children at random. The field took those who noticed, those who remembered too long, those who walked into the wheat with their eyes open. Upstairs the crows began to tap, not loudly, not violently, just once, then again, like a question repeating, tap, pause, tap, pause. On the windows, the roof, the chimney flew, not trying to get in, just letting the house know they were near. The next morning, the townsfolk gathered in the square. They always did on the 4th day. No one said why. They did not speak Isaac's name, nor did they look at the house. They brought loaves of bread and left them at the scarecrow's feet. 4 crows stood on his arms now, their wings folded, their eyes turned inward. The harvest was near its end. Only a few nights left. But the scarecrow had not smiled yet, and the crows had not flown. The offering was not finished, the name in the wood was not yet complete, and Isaac was still awake. Part 5. A boy who would not sleep. In the hollow, children slept through the harvest. That is the rule, that is the price. That is the lie the village tells to keep its hands clean. Because a sleeping child cannot walk, a sleeping child cannot wander, a sleeping child cannot say no. But Isaac was a boy who would not sleep, and the field had noticed. By the 5th night, the crows had moved inside, not in body, not yet, but in essence, their presence soaked into the wallpaper, into the seams of the house, into the breath between every creaking floorboard. They nested in the hush, they roosted in the waiting. The village grew quieter than quiet. The bread left at the scarecrow's feet had gone untouched. The wheat no longer swayed. The scarecrow's head hung low as though deep in thought, and the eyes stitched into its burlap face had grown darker. They had depth now, as if there was something behind them. And Isaac still did not sleep. He laid on the attic floor with his hands crossed on his chest like the dead, but his eyes were open, and the crows, they gathered outside the window, dozens, silent, still, watching. The boy waited for them to knock, but they never did, because they were already inside, and inside him. At midnight, the scarecrow moved. Not a shift, not a twitch. It turned instead. Shoulders first, then head. It raised one hand slowly, slowly until its arm pointed, not at the house, at the attic window, at Isaac. In the same moment, the door to the attic closed on its own, and every candle in the house went out. The hollow does not bury the children it loses, because there are no bodies, only shoes left behind, only whispers in the corn, only the sudden absence that no one explains. But the cellar was different. The cellar was for the unwilling, the ones who saw too much, the ones who asked, why? And now Isaac stood at its threshold again, barefoot, candleless, and full of terror, too old for his age. The root at the base of the wall had spread. They pulsed now, black veins in damp wood. The name on the beam was finished. Not written, but formed. His name had grown there, letter by letter, like ivy across stone, not etched by hand, not carved by crow, but summoned by the weight of knowing. And now it hummed, not sound, expectation. The crows began to sing. Not a song with melody, but rhythm, a tapping, a scratching, a rustle of wings, a heartbeat made of feathers and waiting. The whole town heard it. No one moved, no one breathed, because they knew this was the moment, the choosing, the harvest's edge. But Isaac did not run. He did not weep. He did not lie down like the others had. He turned from the cellar, opened the door, and stepped out into the field. The wheat parted. The scarecrow stood waiting, no longer stitched to the posts, but free, tall, alive in a way no scarecrow should ever be. It wore the name of the children on its chest, each thread a signature, each button a memory. Its hands were made of burlap and old teeth. Its eyes were human. but they were not its own. Isaac stood before it. The crows surrounded them in a perfect circle. No flapping, no screaming, only the sound of the wind turning back. He reached up, took the scarecrow's hand and held it, not with fear, but with understanding, because Isaac was not the one being harvested. He had stayed awake. He had learned the rules. He had become part of the field. And the field had chosen him. The scarecrow bowed its head. The crows lifted into the air all at once, and the wheat bent. And in the center of the storm of feathers, Isaac stood still. No longer the boy who would not sleep, but something older, something watched. And in the hollow, the houses did not mourn, because there had been no child lost, only a new name grown into the soil, and the scarecrow that now watched back. Chapter 6. The Crow's Last Cry. In the hollow, there is no celebration after the harvest, only silence. No feasts, no songs, no gathering of grateful voices in the chapel, because the hollow knows what it has done. It simply refuses to say it out loud. Morning came slow, as if reluctant to touch what the night had left behind. The air held its breath, the clouds hung lower, the wheat stood perfectly still, and the crows were gone. Not one feather remained, not a shadow on the steeple, not a talon mark on the windowsills, just the field, and the scarecrow, and the village that did not ask questions. The scarecrow stood taller than before. Its frame had thickened, its shape had changed, its head now tilted slightly, as though listening. The children whispered that it no longer swayed with the wind, because the wind did not dare move it, and some swore its arms had lowered just slightly, enough to suggest it was no longer bound to its post, only resting there, watching, learning, becoming. In the attic of Isaac's home, the bed was empty. The red cloth had been removed from the door. Elsbeth's chair remained still, never rocking again. And no one asked where the boy had gone, because in the hollow, you do not speak the name of the harvest. If you do, the fields listen, and they remember. But sometimes, when the wheat is high, and the air too still, a traveller might pass by the edge of the village, a trader, a wanderer, a child too curious, and feel a pull, a stillness, a watching. They may step too close to the fence. They may linger just a moment too long, and in that space, in that hush between breath and blink, they might hear it. Not a caw, not a scream, but a cry, low, thick, woven from every name the earth could not keep, the crow's last cry. Some say it's a warning, some say it's a promise, but those who know the hollow best, those who live beneath its silence, they say it is something else entirely. They say it is a greeting, a welcome from the boy who would not sleep, who stayed awake when the fields called, who stood before the scarecrow and did not run. He is still there, they say, buried in the shape of burlap and bone, watching, waiting, and when the next harvest comes, he will be the one who chooses. So sleep well if you can. Keep your doors unlocked, as they always demand, and never follow the crows, never ask where they land. Because in the hollow there is always a harvest, and now the scarecrow has a memory and a name. The tale is told, the feathers fall, the field grows quiet. Epilogue in the hollow. They do not speak of Isaac anymore, not because they forgot, but because he is everywhere now, in the curve of the scarecrow's shoulder, in the hush of the wheat before thunder, in the black glint of a crow's eye when it lingers too long. They say the field is calmer these days, quieter. Children don't vanish like before, but sometimes they come back changed. They sleep with eyes open. They hum songs no one taught them. They draw circles in ash and whisper things to the dark. The village no longer sets out offerings. not out of peace, but because they were told not to. And the scarecrow, stitched with a boy's patience and a field's memory, standing taller than the chapel now. Sometimes it moves, not to chase, not to harm, just to see who's watching. So the rule is simple. Do not look at it too long. Do not speak the name it once had. And when the wind begins to hum through the stalks in late autumn, stay inside, stay quiet, stay asleep. Because in the hollow, the harvest never truly ends. It only waits. So now you know what the villagers won't say, what's buried under the wheat, why the scarecrow watches. This tale was never about monsters, it was about waiting, about the price paid in whispers, and children who see too much and feels that never forget. If this story curled somewhere quiet in your chest, if the silence of the hollow echoed after the tale ended, then please leave a review on iTunes. It helps more than you know, and might just keep the crows from your window. To keep these haunted stories alive, to feed the fields and light the attic, consider supporting me on Patreon. There you'll find bonus episodes, early access, your own way to vote on stories, and submissions of your own tales as well. And maybe, just maybe, a name or two the earth won't keep. Now, let's thank the ones who stayed awake with us. Our Patreons, our watchers, our crows in the rafters. I want to say my special thank yous to those that support me. And first up is my Ode Night Tea Titan, Matto Star, our ever-glowing lantern at the field's edge. When the wind turned cruel and the wheat began to whisper names, Matto didn't run or close the shutters. He simply lit the kettle, placed a warm cup beside an empty chair, and waited. Not for rescue, not for escape, but for the truth, in whatever shape it came. Some say he speaks the language of crows, not with words, but with stillness. That when the scarecrow tilted its head to choose, it paused at the edge of Matto's porch and bowed. Because even in the hollow there are some souls the harvest will not touch. Souls too gentle, too steady. Souls that the field itself leans towards, not to take, but to listen. Matto is the keeper of the quiet moment, the one who waits when everyone else turns away. And if the old stories are ever written down, it will be Matto who lights the lamp while the ink dries. Thank you so much, Matto, for your friendship, your support, and undying dedication. I am very lucky to know you. Have an amazing week ahead of you. Be safe and stay awesome. Thanks for being my pal. I'll now say my thank yous to my white tea warlords. First up is the ever-excellent Lezosaurus Rex, who did not hide when the fields called. Leza marched straight into the wheat barefoot, wrapped their wrists in lifting tape, and challenged the harvest itself to a strength contest under a bleeding moon. The scarecrow, all bone and burlap, bent first. Witnesses say it's still leaning to this day. Its post cracked from a colossal deadlift it just could not compete with alongside Leza. And the crows, well, the crows perch on Leza's shoulders now like trophies. You see, Leza feeds them protein powder and vengeance as a diet. Mate, I hope your gym session is going fantastic, man. Have a wonderful week ahead of yourself. Thanks for being my friend. Stay safe and stay awesome. My next white tea warlord is Maya, who did not fear the crows. She actually adopted them. One by one they crept through her windows, looking to frighten. Instead they found sources of milk, soft blankets, and the gentle power of someone who understands feral creatures because she is one. Now they sleep across her keyboard in tangled feathered heaps. Occasionally they pick out forgotten names in perfect formation. She lets them stay. They keep her secrets. She keeps their claws sharp. Thank you, Maya, for your amazing and undying support. Have a fantastic week ahead, and thanks for being my pal. And my last white tea warlord, Sangeetha Cigar, who had seen the story before the first crow landed. You know, Sangeetha did not ask questions. She left answers in the wheat before the scarecrow even stirred. Some say the runes carved into the cellar floor match her handwriting. Others say the harvest never dares claim her. because she already knows the hour it would try. And she wouldn't be home. If death comes knocking, it finds a note on the door saying, "You're late." Sangeetha, have a fantastic week ahead of yourself. Thank you for being brilliant and being my pal, and stay safe, legend. I now want to say a huge thank you to all my Earl Grey enforcers and below. I am lucky to have Chad Warren, divided by 0, Juicebox Andy, Just Heather, Paige Kramer, Peter Raffaelli, Rhonda Ray, Seductive Smiles, Jane Gumnick, and Michael Krupp. Thank you so much for your support. You put the pep in my step every single weekend. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I'll be back for the next story next week, which will be The Mirror's Promise, which was one of these stories voted upon by you legends in my Patreon posts. But until next week, have a wonderful, brilliant week ahead of yourselves. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's custom song. Thank you, and the stories are just around the corner. See you for now.
Down by the fields where the wheat grows wrong, a shadow took root and hummed a song. No moon that night, just a whisper low. A child went missing when the crows flew slow. 16 feathers, one wooden frame. The wind holds still, but it knows your name. The porch lights dead, the stories weep. The hollow don't speak, the hollow just keeps. 16 years, 16 names, scratched in bark and burnt in flame. A scarecrow stitched with unblinking eyes turns its head as the silence cries. The roots run deep, the sleep runs thin. The harvest begins when you look within. The wheat leans close, the crows grow bold. The tale don't end, it just gets old. 16 feathers, one wooden frame. A child returns, but not the same. The crows still wait, the names still sleep, but the hollow don't quit, and the scarecrow keeps. Thank you, legends, you light up the night. Thank you, supporters, you lift us so high. Loud star, the thesaurus, Maya, Sangeetha. We sing your names, you shine like the sky. Have a great week, we'll meet again, with love and music, until the end.